I just want to mention one thing about that BP thing. They only mentioned it once that I heard of that, just before that tragic accident. Halliburton did a little repair job for them. And I thought, oh, well, that's a nice coincidence.
They seem to be involved in so many things as well, including building internment camps. I want to thank you for your call, sir.
Oh, have a good night, man.
You know, Marshall also drops these off. I don't always get a chance to look at them. Bill, let's go ahead on the document cam. We've got, you know, this is just from last week. That woman does not look human to me. Now, I don't get up here and tell you that lizards run the world. I do tell you that the eyes are the windows to the soul. And so when I see people like, you know, I mean, you can't, it's out of focus. She's a dark, wicked sister. Okay, we've got other things here. We've got phone calls, 503-288-4442. Let me make sense out of something. This is the book Happiness Genes. You know, it's unlock the potential hidden in your DNA. Positive thoughts, epigenetics. Love the stuff. I like the work of Bruce Lipton. He's been on the show before. I should bring him on in the future again. But in this subsection on page 61, it asks the question, do you have victim chemistry? And I thought this was fairly interesting here. I don't think I can read and hold this up at the same time, but the scientist and New Times bestselling author Greg Braden agrees. To me, this makes tremendous sense. We come into a world with the ability to somehow participate in this world. It makes no sense that we would come into a world helpless, powerless, and just be the victim of whatever happens to come along in the world or in life. Although epigenetics points to the importance of DNA, the code still needs to receive instructions that how to perform in the human body. And epigenetics is based on the idea that your thoughts have an impact on your genes, your DNA. Things of that nature, which genes your DNA happens to read or turn on or turn off, instead of you being a slave to your hereditary. Those instructions come from the environment around us, our physical environment, as well as our emotional environment. That would be the thoughts, feelings, beliefs, and emotion. So this is important to understand the psychology of those stuck in the victim consciousness, those stuck in their victim chemistry. These are now directly linked to allow the genes within our bodies their fullest expression or preventing that expression, Braden said, noting further, when we believe that we are powerless victims, that victim chemistry is released into our bodies. We've got a low immune response, and our body may not be as strong and resilient. After all, that's the belief that creates the electromagnetic signal that instructs the immune system's DNA. And we communicate in this wireless biological internet. Not only as humans, but our cells communicate with other cells through electromagnetic signals, through their skin. It just goes back and forth, transmitting back and forth, transmit, receive, receive. We do the same as well. The challenge in human evolution that needs to take place will come from people changing how they feel. When we feel safe in our world, when we learn to love rather than fear, these are literal codes that our hearts send to our brains. Braden says. The brain responds to those signals by giving the body what he calls life-affirming chemistry, life-affirming hormones, and a strong immune system. All this is going to seem even more relevant in the future. You'll see why. Let me comment after this. Although our beliefs play a powerful role in activating the genes that trigger our body's optimum response, Braden observed, what science is showing and what the ancient traditions have always said is that this is how we participate in building this kind of world we would all like to live in, not by controlling or manipulating or imposing our will, or using force or violence to force someone to our way of thinking, to force them onto our central banking system. Not by controlling or manipulating, opposing our will. The beauty is we don't have to know any of that. Recent epigenetic studies show that your life experiences in your environment can impact the behavior of certain genes. As you have seen, parents who are emotionally unstable or neglectful can unknowingly turn off their children's genes that modulate the flow of stress hormones. Very interesting. So think about it like this. Stress hormones constantly being traumatized by your parents. Now think about a society where people being constantly abused, traumatized, beat, raped to a certain degree by their own government, happening over a long period of time. Generations to come will come into this, unless we change things, will come into this environment, maybe without the transhumanistic sprinkle of influence, but with genes that are more likened to that of a slave, maybe an African slave that came here 300-400 years ago right off the boat. Now, what's to say we're not going back to that same kind of tyranny? All roads point to hell, unless we change the way things are going. We just happen to be blessed with the information and internet, and the fact some of you are watching this on YouTube, so we could potentially change this reality. Thank God for free will. So it's not being negative or focused on the dark side. People like me love the potential that this species has, that we can't hold this in. There's no point in holding this in. We care too much. We see that you're more than this. We see that the females in our society are not dogs that eat out of bowls like you might see on TV or in pornography today or in movies, or men. Men are real heroes. They protect the tribe. They don't go out and kill women and children indiscriminately and get a hard-on doing so. Go USA. With a nice side of Coca-Cola and French fries to go along with that, GMO potatoes. Thank you, Monsanto. And just all the video games and all the destruction, all the death. We are repelled by that darkness, and we see that these environmental factors are toying with the very genetic code of people that live around us. Now, this guy doesn't get into the conspiratorial element of what's going on, but when you understand how they understand how we operate, you can understand on a DNA level, on a genetic level, on an energetic level, exactly what's taking place here. It's psychic warfare. It's psychological warfare, and we're right in the trenches. It's happening right here. The war is here. So there are a lot of people that need to heal from the post-traumatic stress disorder that they have gotten from this government, especially in the post-9/11 world. Now let's go through this, and remember, we're looking at the big picture here at Outside the Box on global changes, transformations in consciousness, wars, things of that like happening on a global level at this particular point in time. Clashes continue in Bangkok as protesters defy deadline. Around 5,000 protesters are still on the streets following days of violent unrest that have left at least 35 people dead since Thursday, including a key anti-government leader who was critically wounded by a sniper's bullet last week. We've got the Thai Stock Exchange on fire. Blackouts hitting Bangkok as well. Mysterious as to what's causing the blackouts. They're saying the protesters have already, the leaders surrendered, that is, and that troops were in control. Yet we're seeing this, so either it's the truth or it's not the truth, or there's some false flags taking place. We don't know. Questions are lingering about the financier of the protests. He's the former PM, Prime Minister of Thailand, who many say was also corrupt in his own way. So is this really revolution, or one really rich guy, billionaire? He's paying like $1.5 million a day for these protests. Is it really a revolution, or are the red shirts being controlled by just a rich man, and the people are actually getting played off against one another? That could be what's going on here. Now we see this. Wealth gap spurs revolts across Asia. Peasants left out of region's economic miracle are rising up against their rulers, creating widespread security threats. I'm reading from the Vancouver Sun. You figure out what's really going on. Just connect the dots. Look at the big picture. It's easy to see. While Thailand's red shirt rule poor have been in bloody confrontation with troops in central Bangkok for nearly 3 months, there have been similar rebellions all over Asia by people who believe they have been left out of or excluded from the region's economic miracle. There's also a recent speech that's on YouTube right now. Zbigniew Brzezinski is talking to the CFR, Council on Foreign Relations, about this global political awakening being a threat to world empire. Very interesting. It's on YouTube this week, and it's very, very telling. So the article goes on to talk about revolutions around the world. And, of course, in China, it looks like they have an average of 250 mass incidents of protests taking place there, and they're trying to keep the stories on that particularly quiet. We do have some more time for phone calls, 503-288-4442. We're going to talk about that very, very specific article that I want to get into pertaining to sex trafficking momentarily, but I want to get my thoughts ready for that. Let's go ahead and make sure I've got through these other reports as well. The Nation magazine faces a $1 million deficit. Well, why don't they just call their friends over at the CIA? I'm sure the Nation's friends at the CIA would be able to help them with that. Merkel seeks EU rules after Germany caught short-selling after German short-selling ban. We've got lawmaker seeks investigation into Shore Bank bailout. So much stuff happening here, folks. I just want you to maybe see these articles, and if something triggers your interest,